Hello and welcome back to our Yakuza 4 Remastered playthrough. In our last episode, we handed off the 100 million yen in the hopes of buying Saishima's sister her freedom. Not so successful on that front. And we also happened across an old case that our father was working on. Only he'd kept it off the books. So we did a bit of investigating into that, but ran into something of a brick wall. So we're just going to continue with the main story, head back into Little Asia and lie our head down. So let's be off. In the wrong direction. There we go. Everyone knows that I'm directionally challenged. Oh, standoff reported in the building behind Kotobuki Drugs. Suspect is armed and dangerous. That's the medicine store on the corner, isn't it? That would be that one, I assume. I haven't done Japanese since year 8, so yeah. I just have to guess at this point. Let's peruse the map and see what we can find. And yes, I promise we will do karaoke before this playthrough is done. I clearly won't be actually singing, but we can see how terrible my timing is at least. Alright, I have no idea where Kotobuki Drugs is, so we'll just let that go. And head into Little Asia. Just come get me already. Okay. What are you doing in here? Yes, I'm going towards that dead end, aren't I? I always seem to manage that. 'Tis a shame, but 'tis what you've come to expect as well. Zhao says, "Oh, Marchan, you're back. How'd the thing go?" Tanimura says, "Well, I found the case report for the hit." Zhao says, "You did? What did it say?" Tanimura says, "A lot of stuff we already knew, plus one new piece of info." Zhao says, "Oh." Tanimura says, "Sugiuchi was investigating that case, along with my dad." Zhao says, "Sugiuchi? The same one that's always giving you help back at the station?" Tanimura says, "I've talked to him more times than I care to remember, but he never once mentioned being on a case with my dad." And that's despite him knowing how bad I want the truth. Xiao says nothing. Tanimura continues, that's not the worst of it either. I'm starting to believe someone on the force did my father in. Katsuragi said as much when we met yesterday. Xiao says, another officer. Things just keep getting better, huh? Tanimura says, seriously? Xiao asks, why don't you call it a day, Marchan? Even you need to rest at some point. Tanimura says, you're right. I think I'll knock out for a while. That is a curious way of putting it. Whatever does your boat. Xiao says, you do that. Hey, Meihua, get Marchan's futon ready. Ah, child labour. Chapter 4, Detective's Honour. Xiao asks, so are you going to launch an internal investigation? Tanimura says, not yet. There's something I need to do first. Xiao asks, what? Don't tell me you're taking off with the money. Again. Tanimura says, yeah, I'm totally skipping town. Actually, I'm taking it back to its original owner. Xiao says, oh? Who would that be? Tanimura says, some moneylender, apparently. He's got an office on Tenkaichi Street called Sky Finance. Can you imagine how much interest 100 million yen would rack up if I just let it sit? Yeah, forget that. Xiao says, Meihua says, bye, Marchan, have a good day. Tanimura says, oh, I'll try. See you later. Head for Sky Finance. The Kotobuki drug standoff has been resolved. All units stand down. Alright, perhaps give me a clearer direction to where things are. Oh well. Yes, we've got the Please Mug Me shirt on, together with the massively unsuspicious aluminium briefcase. Yeah, no one's gonna suspect a thing. You know, there was a reason why the diplomatic bag was just an ordinary leather bag, so that it blended in, you know, so that people would just think it was ordinary, instead of being a massive blaring, please mug the ambassador and take all of these things he's smuggling across borders. And you know, even the Italian mafia, the Sicilian mafia, depending on where you're from, hid the Tommy gun in the violin case because they didn't want it taken. So we've arrived, and Tanimura says to himself, huh, so Sky Finance was here all along.
Oi, 誰かいないか? どちらさん? あんた、秋山さんか?
そうですけど。
ああんたどこかで。
あんたこの前の。
そうか、あんたが安子さんに金を貸した男だったのか。
安子ってリリちゃんのこと？どうしてあんたリリちゃんの名前を？
So they've sat down. Akiyama says, so that's her story. Tanimura asks, she didn't tell you any of this? Akiyama says, nope, never asked. I figured it was something serious, but dang. Borrowing enough to put 100 millionaires in debt, all to save your wrongfully accused brother on death row. I just wish she'd have come to me earlier. Might have saved her from going down a dark path. Tanimura says, well, now that Katsuragi's broken his promise, we can at least put the money issue to rest. Here, I'm sure she'd want you to have this.
Yeah.
Akiyama says, nah, I'm good. Tanimura says, wait, what? Akiyama says, I'm saying I won't accept the money. We're straight. Tanimura says, okay, explanation please? Akiyama says, regardless of how things went down, I lent that money to her. Isn't it only right that she be the one to return it? Tanimura says, I don't know. Won't that leave a big gaping hole in your account? Akiyama says, Detective, I have so much money I hardly know what to do with it. And I'm not interested in making more. As for the 100 million, I couldn't give a rat's ass if I never saw it again. Tanimura asks, why? Akiyama says, you see, I only lend money to people I feel are worth investing in. That way, I can see how my loan affects their life, and that's much more meaningful reward than seeing numbers on a spreadsheet. Tanimura says, not sure I understand your logic, but okay. Akiyama says, point is, I'm not taking that money, not until she returns it in person. Where is she anyway? Tanimura says, Okinawa. Her brother was transferred to a prison there a few days ago. She said she wanted to be near him on his execution date. Akiyama says, I knew she was a keeper. Tanimura asks, what? Akiyama says, did I not mention I fell for her? Tanimura says, what, like in love? Akiyama nods. Exactly. So I'd really like to see her again. Unfortunately, that money's the only connection between us now. If I take it back from you, the connection is cut, and I'll probably never see her again. Tanimura says, some say love lasts only as long as the money. Akiyama laughs. Ain't that the truth? Pretty sad, huh? Almost as sad as this Arai-san business. Tanimura asks, Arai? Akiyama says 1 second, stands up and whips it out. And teleports, apparently.
もしもし。
Akiyama says, hello. Oh, Kido-chan. How you been? Found Arai-san yet? What? Mishima? You mean that Ueno goon without a bullet in his head? Uh-huh. Yeah. All right. Okay, leave it to me. I'll get back to you. Bye. Akiyama sits back down. Tanimura asks, who was that? I heard something about finding Arai. Akiyama replies, that was Kido, Arai's right-hand man. Tanimura asks, what? Akiyama says, I might as well tell you now. I'm helping Kido find his boss, Arai. He's a good kid. Tanimura asks, why? Akiyama says, because I can't afford to lose Arai-san. Shibata's boys are going nuts trying to find him. They're trying to appease the Ueno Seiwa by handing him over. We have to find him somehow before they get their hands on him. Of course, if what you just said is true, I've been betting on the wrong horse. Tanimura asks, what's your connection with Arai anyway? Akiyama says, I've been backing him out of personal interest. I'm not a mob front or anything. Still, this whole thing's been a real kick in the sack. Who'd imagine Arai-san would be in bed with Katsuragi? I never pegged him as the type to make a move like that. Tanimura asks, so what exactly was that call about? Akiyama asks, Oh, that. Kido-chan was looking for Arai-san when he stumbled across the other Ueno goon. You know, the one that disappeared after the shooting? Tanimura asks, there was another one? Akiyama says, guy named Mishima. He was sworn brothers with Ihara, the guy Arai ventilated downstairs. Tanimura asks, so what about him? Akiyama says he's asking for police protection. In exchange, he says he'll cough up all he knows. Tanimura asks, he wants the police? Akiyama says he wants a detective he can trust. One that can protect him from the Ueno Seiwa clan. Tanimura has nothing to say. Akiyama says, I think you should go talk to him. Tanimura asks me. Akiyama says, yeah, you're a perfect fit. I mean, based on what you said, the force sounds like a total snake pit. Plus, you can't count on Sugiuchi-san or your superiors. What better person than you? Tanimura asks, why should I? Akiyama says, who knows? It might get you a step closer to the truth you're looking for. Tanimura asks, how do you figure? Akiyama says, the recent shooting between the Ueno Seiwa clan and the Kanamura Enterprises, right? I've got this hunch it's all connected to the case your old man was working on back in '85. There's just too much overlap between the main players to be a coincidence. Tanimura has nothing to say.
もしあの新井さんが裏でつながっていた葛城の命令であのドンパチ事件を作為的に起こしていたとしたら、
まあ葛城は柴田と共謀して登場会を乗っ取ろうとしていた。
そこにリリちゃんの殺人だ。葛城は共謀していたはずの柴田を裏切り、さらに25年前の事件の真相を知る人間を消そうとした強引なやり方でな。だがどうして今になってそこまでする必要があった？今までも殺そうと思えば殺せたはずだ。なのになぜ今？
焦っていた。
そう、葛城は焦っていた。ドンパチ事件が起こる前に何とかして25年前のことを知る人間を殺す必要があった。どうしてだ？
指示されていたからか。葛城を裏で操っている人間に。
その人間ってのは
25年前の真実が公になってはならない人間。事件をもみ消そうとした警察の連中か。
そういうことになる。警察内部に裏切り者がいるってことだな。どうする？三島って男に会ってみる？その価値はあると思うけど。
おい、俺が行こう。だが罠を張る。
罠？何それ？
その三島ってのが 本当にあのドンパチ事件の生き残りなんだったら何か知ってる可能性もある。
まあそりゃそうだけど。
なら三島の存在は葛城だけじゃなく警察の裏切り者にとっても邪魔なはずだ。
なるほどね。わざと警察に三島との接触を報告して裏切り者をあぶり出すってことか。危険な賭けになるぞ。覚悟はできてんのか？
なあ、俺にとってこの山は自分の人生そのものなんだ。
Careful, or they'll grant your wish there. Akiyama says, Mishima's supposedly hiding over in the docks on Tokyo Bay. Your best bet is to take a taxi there, unless of course you have a fancy cop car. Tanimura says, thanks for the advice. And thinks to himself, now to report my next move to the station. He apparently has the cop shop on speed dial. So he's on the phone and he says, hi, this is Tanimura from Community Safety. Can I get someone in organised crime, please? Yeah, anyone there will do. Thanks. He waits a tiny bit. Hi, this is Tanimura from Community Safety reporting in. I just wanted to check in before I go meet with a Yakuza member named Mishima, a material witness to that shooting in Kamurocho the other day. I'm meeting him over at the docks on Tokyo Bay. Yes, that's right. No, he's already there. Okay, thank you. Bye. He hangs up and says, okay, now that that's taken care of, I'll be on my way. Akiyama says, alright, just be careful, and good luck. Meet Mishima at the pier. Tanimura thinks to himself, Mishima's supposed to be hiding in a warehouse on the docks. Getting there by cab would draw the least attention. And some dude is just standing there. Yes, did we have 4? We could use. Could get, not use. Right, we'll get Spirit of the Tortoise. Block enemy attacks with the Spirit of the Black Tortoise to increase your heat gauge. Activated after successful guard with L1. And we'll leave that for now. Hyped up henchman says, yeah, Mishima. He's that blonde-haired fuck everyone's on the lookout for. Find him ASAP, damn it, and quit fucking around. This is top priority. I don't care if he gets you killed, just find him. Got it? Tanimura thinks to himself, this guy sure has it out for Mishima. I wonder if he's an Ueno Seiwa man. We could always nick him and submit him to the thumbscrews down at the neck. But anyway, let's find a cab. The minimum fare is 710 yen. Where would you like to go? Down the docks, please. Taxi driver says, very well, sir.
Kamurochoの谷村だ。お前が保護してもらいたがっているって話を聞いてやってきた。
ああ、あんたがそうか。
お前が上の清和会の三島だな。
Mishima asks, are you a detective? Tanimura says, yeah, I'm here to place you under protection.
そうだ。
Mishima says, okay. And you really think you can keep me safe? Tanimura says, only if you keep your part of the bargain. You give me the dirt on what the Ue no Seiwa's been doing behind the scenes, and I'll make sure you stay out of harm's way. Mishima says, then that's a deal. I'll talk. It's like this. Me and Ihara were ordered to go make a scene at Club Elnard. Tanimura asks why.
いいよ。
Mishima replies, dunno, nobody said. Katsuragi just told us to stir shit up, so we followed his orders. Then that prick showed up. Tanimura asks, Akiyama from Sky Finance?
そうだ。
Mishima nods. Yeah, Akiyama. He fucked up the entire game plan. I don't remember nothing after he busted that bottle over my head. Next thing I knew, I was in the Champion District. Ihara must have carried me over. Woke up surrounded by garbage bins. No sign of Ihara anywhere. Tanimura asks, why the Champion District? Mishima says, the two of us get shit-faced there a lot. That, and it's close to Elnard. Ihara must have been freaking out. I bet someone was chasing him if he ditched me like that. I started looking for him so I could find out what happened and figure out our next move. I had no idea what a shitstorm this whole thing had become. Anyway, I'd been walking around Kamurocho for a while when I found him. Tanimura says, his body anyway. Mishima says, I practically puked when I saw that. I couldn't even process what was going on, you know. All I knew was I was scared shitless, so I ran as far as I could. I ended up at Ueno Seiwa headquarters, but I barely remember how I got there. Found an empty room there to chill the fuck out. Thought I'd catch my breath and try to digest all the shit that just went down. That's when I heard Katsuragi. He was in the next room talking to somebody on the phone. Tanimura asks, what did he say? Mishima says, can't say I heard everything. He was in another room and he'd already been talking a while. But it sounded like he was talking to the cops. The word police came up a lot. But it's what he said next that freaked me out. He said, Ihara's dead just as planned. We'll get rid of Mishima as soon as we find him. Tanimura has no words. Mishima says, I got the fuck out right then and there, thankfully before anyone saw me. I've been keeping it low pro ever since.
このままじゃ俺は上の世話に殺されちまう。刑務所でもどこへでも行くから俺を助けてくれ。
分かった。とりあえず俺のアジトまで来い。警察で保護の体制が整うまでの間、そこでしばらく。あんたは。杉内さん。
Sugiuchi says, you're one surprise after the next, kid. Getting this close to the truth and all by yourself? I'm damn near impressed. Tanimura has no words. Sugiuchi says, you don't seem too fazed by all of this. Tanimura says, let's just say I had a feeling you'd show up. Sugiyuchi laughs. So you baited organized crime to see if you could lure out the traitor? Tanimura nods. Something like that. Sugiyuchi says, and you're not surprised to see it's me? Tanimura says, not really, though I can't say I wanted it this way. Sugiyuchi asks, how did you know it was me? A gambler's dumb luck? A detective's hunch? Tanimura says, Sugiyuchi-san, a good hunch comes from keen observation. Didn't you learn that back at the academy? Sugiyuchi laughs. Must have slipped my mind. So, what tipped you off? Tanimura says, I've known you were no ordinary cop for a while now. Sugiyuchi has no words. Tanimura says, it's your fancy shoes. They always look brand new. Not exactly practical for a homicide cop working murder scenes. A normal cop buys cheap shoes and wears them into the ground. The watch, too. It's way too expensive for a detective's salary. It's so high-end, I doubt your average person's ever even heard of the brand. And if they did, their heads would explode at the price tag. Sugiyuchi laughs. Well, don't you have it all? Instincts and a sharp eye. Tanimura says, please, Sugiyuchi-san, you really think it was all me? Sugiyuchi says, huh? Tanimura says, you haven't exactly been subtle. The rescue you staged when I met up with Katsuragi, sending Chief Hisai ahead to homeland. It almost feels like you've been wanting me to catch on. Sugiyuchi asks, what are you talking about? Tanimura says, you've been working with Katsuragi for the last 25 years, but now you've grown tired of your little partnership, haven't you? Sugiyuchi has no words. Tanimura says, I paid a visit to Archive Room 13. I saw the report on the Ueno Seiwa hit. Sugiyuchi asks, what? Tanimura says, you and my dad were both assigned to that case. Only the two of you could have covered up something as big as Katsuragi butchering 18 of his own people. And I know it wasn't him. Sugiyuchi has no words, again. Tanimura says, you were ordered by someone up top to alter the facts, weren't you? All to protect your good friend, Katsuragi. Tell me I'm wrong. Sugiyuchi fires his gun and says, you shut your goddamn mouth! Not a very good shot, are you? Sugiyuchi goes on, you don't know the first fucking thing about that case, or about me.
そこまでだ。
これは
ここまでだ、杉内。お前が上の清和会の桂木と内通していたことは割れている。無駄な抵抗はやめて、おとなしく投降しろ。
くそ。
杉内さん、もう終わりにしましょう。
やっぱりお前ら何にも分かっちゃいねえよ。
杉内さん、
てめえらごときがな、俺の正体知ったとこで結局何にもできやしねえんだ。じゃあ
動くな。
撃てんのかよ、須藤さんよ。ここで撃ったらあんた終わりだ。
日本の警察ってのはな、撃てねえんだよ。そうだろ。
一課長、何してるんですか。命令を。
これが警察って組織がひしこいて守ってる正義ってやつだ。お前にも分かったか。じゃあな。
俺は撃てるぜ。
谷村。
法律がどうこうって問題じゃねえ。要はこれが俺の警察官としての正義だ。
谷村、お前やっぱり見込みがある男だぜ。現場で30年近くデカやってる俺が言ってんだ。間違いねえよ。
それはありがたいね。
分かった。それじゃお前の正義ってやつがどこまで本気なのか味わわしてもらおうか。
待て。杉内。
じゃあな、谷村。
くそ。逃がすかよ。
Oh dear, we have to chase. Right. Left, right. Triangle to shoot. Square to quick attack. You know, given the amount of bullets I'm putting into his outboard... It probably should be, if not sinking, then at least slowing down. Oh, this is bringing back memories of Yakuza Kiwami. I'm no good with a gun. It's Miami Vice. Don't ask me how I know Miami Vice. Wonder which one of us is Don Johnson. Hitting boys. This is a 6-shooter. I should have to reload at some point.
まさかお前がここまでやるとはな。教えてやろう。おやっさんはな、俺がやったんだ。
何？
てめえの親父を殺したのはこの俺だって言ってんだ。
もう逃がさねえぜ。
手錠かけたくれでな、捕まえたと思ってんじゃねえぞ、種村。
Uh-oh. You know, I am actually going to say, why did they let him pick up his gun again? That could have been a very interesting fight. Just to have us, you know, know where to go. But just close quarters brawling. Not this stuff, not street fighting. But just, yeah, just... Okay, some sponsored sushi should help us out there. Yeah. I suppose it sort of would have been like two clowns in the back of a Volkswagen Beetle trying to have a fist fight, but you know. Yeah, just fighting in the handcuffs could have shown that it was a climactic sort of battle between these two. Not that this doesn't do the same thing, but you know.
さあ教えろ。俺の親父を殺したのは誰なんだ。25年前俺の親父を荒川に捨てたのは誰なんだ。おい言え。
今さら何度も言わせんな。俺だ。どうした？撃たねえのか？
なんでだよ。なんであんたなんだよ。なんで警察官が警察官を殺さなきゃならねえんだよ。
だから言ったじゃねえか。違うんだって。俺はな、そもそも警察官じゃねえ。俺はな、極道なんだよ。
どういうことだ。
俺と桂木はな、そっちの世界でいうとこの兄弟、つまり親友ってことだ。
なんだって。
俺初めから上の清和会側の人間なんだ。警察の内部事情をスパイするために警察学校に入りデカになったヤクザ、それが俺だ。
あんたがヤクザ？
そうだ。
じゃあ25年前の上野義治襲撃事件の真犯人が桂木だということを俺の親父が知ってしまったからあんたは親父を殺したのか。
そんな簡単な話じゃねえ。そんな簡単な話じゃねえんだよ。
生きてんのか。なんだこりゃ。
ゴム弾ですよ。
あ、
死ぬほどじゃないですが、威力は相当なもんだったでしょう。
桂木、お前何言って。
桂木、てめえ何して。兄弟、終わったのか。
ああ、俺もちゃんと入院しねえとな。死なねえ程度に撃ってくれ。
分かった。これでお前が退院したら若頭か。
親父の方がくたばらなきゃな。大丈夫だ。しばらくしたら目を覚ますだろう。あとは頼んだぜ。
以上が冴島大河による上野義治襲撃事件の顛末です。
なるほど。ご苦労だったな。
いえ、これが自分の仕事ですから。
ほう。嘘の報告書を書くことがかね。
何のことでしょうか。
無理がありすぎるよ、杉内君。この程度の報告書で私の目をごまかせるとでも思ったのかね。あの狭い店内、犯人の冴島が20人もの組員とやり合うにはかなり無茶な乱闘になったはずだ。当然冴島も抵抗を受けただろう。それなのに死んだ18人は皆全て正確に頭を撃ち抜かれている。この冴島という男はよほど射撃に手慣れた鉄砲玉だったんだろうね。さらに検視の報告を見ると面白いことがわかる。事件当日、組員たちは防弾チョッキを身につけていなかった。不用心にもね。そして頭を撃ち抜かれた組員たちは全員体にゴム弾を被弾したような傷があった。君も知ってるだろう。警察がボート鎮圧用に試験開発した特殊な弾丸だ。まだ実験段階ではあるが、相手を気絶させる程度の威力は十分にある。だが犯人はどうして警察関係者しか知らないはずのゴム弾を入手できたのかな。そもそも致命傷を与えることができないゴム弾で一度相手を気絶させ、その上でわざわざ実弾を使って殺害したりするものだろうか。いや、もしそうだとしたら不思議な犯人だね。そして上野義治以外に唯一生き残った桂木という男だけはなぜか肩に実弾を受けている。正確に標的の頭を撃ち抜く腕を持った犯人が 葛城の時だけ狙いを外したんだろうか。
宗像部長、
杉内君、この事件、私の推測では葛城という男が仕組んだことだったのではないかと思う。どうかね。冴島大河は葛城に利用されただけだ。このことに有能な君が思い至らなかったとはとても思えないのだがね。
それは
杉内君、一つ君に頼みがある。
頼み？
私に葛城勲を引き合わせなさい。そうすれば今回のこの事件、君の報告書通りの結末にするがどうだね。
宗像、ひょっとして今の警視庁副総監の？
ああ、俺らのバックにはあの宗像副総監がいる。これでお前も分かっただろう。敵は果てしなく強大な存在だ。はあ、これで楽になった。30年だ。30年も偽りの自分を演じてきたんだ。誰にも話せず、誰にも理解されずにな。この苦しみがお前に理解できるか？
あんた、
俺は一体何がしたかったのか。25年前のあの日、宗像を葛城に引き合わせたあの日から、俺は警察と極道両方の犬になっちまった。本当の自分の目的なんてもうすっかり忘れちまったよ。お前はいいな、デカとして生きられて。
え？
偽りとはいえ30年もデカやってると、それなりに人に感謝されたり喜ばれたりすることもあった。俺はその度に悩み苦しんだ。果たして俺は何がしたいんだろうってな。事件を解決するや人から感謝される、そんなりゃ頭じゃダメだと分かっていても心の奥底では嬉しいという感情を覚えちまう。俺もさ、お前みたいに悩んで苦しんで走って力いっぱいデカやってみたかったな。
杉内さん、
逮捕しろよ。お前は自分の力で父親の敵捕まえたんだ。どうした？
一つ教えてくれ。
うん。
宗像の目的ってのは何だ？宗像はあんたや葛城を使って何をしようとしているんだ？
お前の目的は俺を捕まえることだろう。それは達成できたんだ。これ以上は知らない方がいい。
ダメなんだよ。それじゃダメだって親父が言ってる気がするんだ。まだ事件は終わってない。だから俺は宗像を捕まえる。
それを知ったら日本の警察全てを敵に回すぞ。それでもいいのか？
親父の死の真相を知るために刑事になった時から覚悟はできてる。
そうか。
杉内さん。杉内さん、しっかりしろ。
谷村、
何ですか？
俺だけじゃないんだ。裏切り者は。
え？裏切り者？杉内さん、杉内さん。
これでようやく楽になれる。ありがとうな。
杉内さん、目を開けろ。杉内、杉内。
そうか。杉内が死んだか。
ええ。命令通り始末しました。ええ。二人ともです。これから谷村の身の回りの事実を知る人間を始末します。
あんた、マーちゃんに何をするつもりだ。Well, there we go. Had suspicions, personally. But, yeah, sometimes it's nice to see your suspicions be correct as well. Also liked the facial work they tried to do with Tsukiyuchi in his final moments. All the little muscular spasms, I suppose. Nice little touch. But anyway, that's Tanimura's story done for now. And I believe we shall start next time with Kiryu. But that will have to wait for next time. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you in the next episode.